So again, the idea is just kind of an informal conversation. I'm just here to answer questions that you guys might have that hopefully that are kind of indicative of what might be floating around out there and amongst the membership. You know, as I talked about a little bit in the email, I'm trying to find some new and better ways to communicate. There seems to be a real thirst for it, and I'm all about it. And just we've tried a lot of different things. You saw some new stuff in the snapshot, hopefully, and stuff like that. And we're going to do some more stuff like that. And you know, we're trying to get out more email blasts, more push notifications, and I guess part of this is maybe stuff that doesn't have a perfect home in any one of those things. So anything I can do to get that kind of information out, I want to do it. And hopefully this is just the start of something bigger, and we go from there. Okay. An expectation, then we kind of set up a time frame, and every month or so we get something out that's coming from the different committees and what they're working on, whether they're working on anything or not. Just kind of get that out there.
Yeah. I shared with you that I happened to go to a Master HOA meeting, and I found it very informative, but it kind of led to questions, you know, like what's going on with our own facility committee. Mm-hmm. And there's really no person to send a question to or an email to other than you, and I kind of feel, you know, that you're sort of the middle person because it's the committee. So if
right.
you had something coming from the committee, it would be helpful.
Okay.
I think that's a really good point, because committees work on items for a long time, and then they come out and people say, well, I don't know that's where you were going, and I didn't, you know, that's not what I wanted. So if you have that monthly newsletter, the committees can get feedback back from the members who are reading this, and it may help the committees move in their direction more consistent with what the members want.
And I'm going to go back to a memo that you put out, Patrick, on May 9th about the announcement for Humphrey Roselle being engaged as the architectural firm. We're all wondering what's going to happen there.
Okay.
And we're all wondering how it's going to impact us in the future. But since May 9th, I really haven't heard a word about what the progress is. And I'm thinking that what's going to happen here at Twin Eagles, the decisions are made, the votes are going to be made, my guess is before or by March of next year. Mm-hmm. So there's lots going to happen, and I think I would like to make sure that the members have an opportunity to weigh in before we see the final product. In your memo, you talked about engaging the members and the club staff through meetings and workshops. Could you just kind of give us
Sure.
an idea of where we stand right now in that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to back up just a step, after Humphrey Roselle was selected, they went through a search with the facilities committee. I think they interviewed 3 different firms before they chose Humphrey Roselle. Once they had selected them, they basically kind of talked with him about where the club to, how do I put this, I guess modernize it and become a little bit more competitive in the marketplace, adding some amenities, things like that, and then also dealing with some of the capacity issues that we have, where the clubhouse and things are designed, the parking lot, everything was designed for a much smaller membership than we have today. So those are some of the things that were laid out to Dave and say, hey, think about ways of potentially solving some of these problems we have. Dave subsequent came out and met with the team here on the ground, my senior team, and said, okay, what do you guys see from your side? And so we had long conversations about what we saw the challenges here, delivering the member experience that they deserve. So he took all that information, and right now he's in the process of working through his first kind of iteration, his first digestion of that information, looking at the site, seeing what's possible, what's not possible. It would be right now to say, okay, we're going to put in 10 tennis courts independent of whether or not there was a need, just based on the sheer amount of land around here, it would be very challenging to do. So he's trying to think through all those things and get answers to some of those questions that are floating around about the amenities. Once he gets to a point where he's comfortable with kind of his thought process, then we're going to come back to the membership, hopefully October-ish is what we're looking at right now, and start having meetings with groups of people. And it's going to be a very intensive process over probably 4 to 6 weeks, if not a little bit longer, where we have town halls and we have conversations where the membership at large has the opportunity to come in, talk with Dave about what his thought process has been and what the potential solutions that he's come up with to some of the problems that were identified early on by the facilities committee, and some of the problems that we've identified as the team on the ground that's tasked with delivering the member experience.
So as far as communication, then we have a lot of members that don't come back until January. So I feel like they need ample time in case they want to be a part of
Mhm.
that they can actually be here? Or is there some way that they could do some kind of a call-in?
Oh, yeah, we are going to, so once we start pushing the information out, it's going to go out in every single media we can come up with. You know, we're talking about video conferencing, we're talking about videos, we're talking about PowerPoint presentations, we're talking about pushing it out in every possible way. Part of the reason too why and I should have said this in the beginning, the vote we're targeting is sometime in April, maybe later, you know, if it gets all the way to that point, if we can get to that point this season. And you know, we don't know. If there's so many people that are not seeing what they want to see one way or the other, it might not happen, you know, this next membership year. I certainly hope it does, but if it doesn't, then, you know, we'll have to go further into the future. But we've pushed it back into April, maybe even May, for that exact reason. We want to be sure that we have the opportunity for everybody to see it and weigh in before it goes to a vote.
My concern is that we're not going to get a full facilities master plan before we start making decisions. And I think the big thing that would happen if we're going to do April is that there's going to be a plan in place to renovate the town prior to actually understanding the full cost and the full scope of the work that we're going to do overall. And I'd like to see the whole package before we make those decisions.
Well, so, yeah, to step back a little bit, yes, absolutely. The Talon right now, you know, Nicholas Design has been, you know, contracted to look at renovating the Talon. That process is underway right now. They're hoping to have a number to us probably in the next month or so associated with that. We know, though, candidly, that we're not going to, I mean, I think the board believes right now, they're not going to ask the membership to pay for one without knowing the cost of the other one. So the thought right now is probably to tie the two together in one vote so that everybody can see the package as a whole. Now, whether or not it stays that way at the end of the day, whether or not, you know, there might be this idea that we pull them apart, but from a voting standpoint, but at the end of the day, I'm certainly not going to, and I don't think the board is going to ask anybody to vote on the Talon without knowing what the master plan is going to cost as well. Yes and no. So, like with the Nicholas Design Group, they designed the golf course, they built the golf course, they're imagining a freshening, they're not redesigning the golf course. So there's costs associated with that are just the costs associated with rebuilding a green, and there's no way to mitigate those costs other than not rebuilding the green.
Yep.
So from the golf course standpoint, there definitely is not as much conversation at this point about the budget associated with that. We just need to see what that cost is going to be, and I think everybody has got numbers bantering around of what it could be. I mean, it could be, you know, on the lower side $1 million, on the higher side probably closer to $7 million. It just depends on the extent of the work that we wind up doing out there to the Talon. The real opportunity to kind of constrain the project or constrain the thinking of the architects comes with the master plan, and that was, you know, with Dave Humphreys. Because you could say, okay, we're only going to spend $1 million, or we're only going to spend 10, or we're only going to spend, you know, 20, whatever the number is. And we took the approach early on that, okay, let's think about it from the standpoint of not constraining his thinking in the overall master plan, but do it in such a way that we could layer into the master plan over time. So we could do this chunk of it, and this could be the first 5 years worth of work. And that appetite is determined, again, by what that first 5 years worth of work looks like. And then we could go on to the next set, the next set, the next set. But there was a lot of conversations about that in the beginning. But because it was a master plan, the idea was, let's put everything out there that the membership and the leadership team thinks, and especially with Dave's experience, having done, you know, 90 courses or clubs really in the area, he's got a lot of experience of bringing kind of the clubs into the new era. We basically asked him to give us a plan that he felt like the club needed to adopt to get the club to where it would be competitive in this marketplace.
Was the survey actually used? And
Absolutely.
utilized?
He saw both surveys. He saw the first one and the second one.
Good. Because
Absolutely.
a lot of people sometimes when they take surveys feel like it's not worth it. Why am I going to do this? And so to encourage people, and you personally just said that you are utilizing that, that's a good thing.
100%. I mean, part of the driver for this room was the survey.
Yes.
The number one thing on it was casual dining.
Can you tell us about how much communication you have with the board and with the HOA, and how that process works between you?
So the HOA and I are still kind of developing. You know, Rob's actually the Rob Green, the HOA manager, is actually officed in this building, so we see quite a bit of Rob.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still getting a feel for how the HOA master board works in the Master Association. I just was sitting with Mr. Moat, who's the new president, I believe, of the HOA yesterday, having a conversation. So we've had a lot of conversations, and we're all still trying to figure it out. What's the best way to work together? How is it going to be perceived by the various components and stuff like that? But I think we're getting there. I'm confident we have to find a way to work really, really well together, because we are tied together by the community, and that's the way it's always going to be. And I think it's going to be fine. The board itself, I'm communicating with them almost daily on something or another. We are meeting monthly right now. We have a board meeting next week, but there's always something going on that I'm communicating with them. I'm always sending them kind of little updates on stuff that's going on and seeing what they're thinking and what if they've got any insights into something, especially because from a history standpoint, I don't know all the history. Is there history to this or that I should know before I make a decision on X, Y, or Z? And oftentimes I'll get that information from them. So staff training is in its infancy right now, and that's only because I'm just getting the people now in place that can really start to implement the training. We're actually looking right now at developing, kind of the protocol for new hires here in the F&B operation. How are they going to serve? How do you clear? How do you greet? How do you, stuff like that. And it's very basic, but in the past, it's not something that was high on the priority list for the management team here. It is something that's on the priority list for us, and that's what we're working on. The next piece of that is really the director of golf, right? So we've got the F&B, which is really the forward-facing part of that side, and then we have the director of golf, who's the golf operations person. That person is in the works right now, and once they get on board too, we're going to be looking for them to help us develop what that training procedure and policies look like downstairs. So we know it's important, and it's going to be critical that we have something robust in place prior to the season opening. And my mind, I'm shooting for October 1st as really our kickoff, to have everything as much in place as we can to get the member experience back up to where everybody expects it to be. Absolutely.
Protocol.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, the Tiki's designed to be more casual, just because of where it is. But at the end of the day, it still needs to be done in a very professional way. And I think based on what I've seen and what I've heard, especially from the survey, it was way too relaxed down there. And again, there's an element of that's fine, but at the end of the day, it needs to be a relaxed, professional atmosphere still, and we don't have that right now.